Hey, Wow VIP Tribe, I'm so glad you signed in to this powerful masterclass about how to build your business and do something really unique on the internet called a podcast. So for those of you who don't know what a podcast is, you're going to learn all about it today and the power behind it and the truth. We'll debunk some myths and really build on podcasting to build your business. So I'm here with none other than the amazing Tanya Fox from Fox Talks Business. If you don't listen to her podcast, get on it. It's incredible. Tanya, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. It's always a pleasure to be able to chat with you.
So Tanya, tell me about podcasting. What is it? Why did you get into it? What does the world of podcasting look like?
So we've really seen a huge surgence of the popularity of podcasts. We've seen it, more so you hear about it with the stars, the movie stars are all getting podcasts, and stuff like that. But it's really been an avenue for people to sort of have another way to communicate and another way to get their voice out there being heard. So people are using it to not only expand their business knowledge, to let people know that they're an expert in their field, to share stories. There's a lot that are out there that are, they're just doing it for fun, kind of thing. So there's quite a wide range of it. And I think the popularity from it really comes because there's no censorship. You can really say whatever it is that you want, and you're not restricted by a lot of the guidelines that main media and stuff like that has. So people are really now, I think, delving more as finding it as a tool to use for their business, especially if they want to become a speaker or they're wanting to teach. We're seeing a lot more coaches that are coming on and doing podcasts. And it's really becoming just another tool that people are putting into their box for their businesses. And that is one of the reasons why I started it. I wanted an avenue that I could really say whatever was on my mind. And I wasn't restricted. You go to conferences and you get this list of what you can and what you can't talk about, what you can and what you can't say. And it's all based around, what they're trying to convey at that conference, which is fine. But there were some times where I was like, I think people really need to know about this. I think they need to, they need more information. They need a more behind the look of exactly what's happening. And so I thought podcasting would be a great avenue for me. And at the initial time, I thought this is going to be pretty easy, right? You just sit down, record something, throw it out, and away you go. It's not the case.
Why not? Why not? So for those of you who are wondering, what is a podcast? It really is almost like having your own radio segment, but on the internet.
Yep.
And people to subscribe. And sometimes podcasts are complimentary. Sometimes you pay for them. And the range is long and wide in subject matter. So,
hundreds of thousands of different podcasts that you can find on any genre, whether it's, you're looking for business or humor, whether you're looking for crime, if you're looking for conspiracy theories, like for kids, there's just everything that you could imagine.
Fantastic. So tell me about Fox Talks Business, the podcast. How did you get started? What were the ups and downs? If someone is out there watching this thinking, oh, you know what? I think I might want to look at this whole podcast world to promote my business. Where do we get started?
So I'll kind of take you through a little bit of my story. It might be a little bit easier for everybody. But when I had initially come up with the idea for podcasting, like I had said, I wanted a genre where I could talk about anything that I wanted. And it really was going to be based around business. That was my initial idea for it. And so I did what most people do when they want to start something new, and I Googled it. And I did a lot of research on Google and on YouTube, and just finding what was working for people and what wasn't working for them. And mainly I was looking for platforms that are out there to be able to use because, before I get into any venture, I want to know what costs I'm going to have to it. And a lot of people think that there isn't, but there is cost involved. And that's the main thing that I say to people wanting to start a podcast. There's money that's going to leave your hand for doing this. It is not all free. And so, the initial investment doesn't need to be a lot. To be honest, you can start a podcast just using your smartphone, just recording off of your iPhone in a closet or in a carpeted room that, has a good echo to it, so you have good sound. And there's a lot of platforms out there where you can get free uploading of your podcasts, but you're limited on some stuff too. So for example, there's Libsyn and Blueberry, SoundCloud, Podomatic, Spreaker, Buzzsprout, Simplecast, Podbean, and there's so many more now. But
I'm like, what?
Those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. And there's more coming every single day of these, these businesses saying, hey, we're going to make a platform for you to put your podcast out. So that was the first thing that I needed to figure out. I know that I want to record. I know what I want to talk about, which you have to know that at the beginning, but now how do I get it out so that people can hear it? And finding a platform that works for you is one of the key things that you need to do, because you need to figure out who's going to host it, because you don't want to host it on your own website, because then you're paying a lot more for it. And it's easier for someone else to do it. We all have enough to do in our day, let alone doing that. So I myself use Libsyn. I love the company. Their customer service is fantastic. I've been using them now since 2018, and they're just phenomenal. And it's one click for me. After the initial setup is a little bit long to do, but there's tons of tutorial videos on how to do it. And then you pretty much are uploading your episode, and away it goes to all of the avenues, whether that be Apple Podcast or the Google Podcasts or Spotify, iHeartRadio. It just kind of sends it automatically out there. So it's nice to have a partner like that does all of the background work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next thing that you really have to consider is equipment. Like I said, you can just use your iPhone to record on, but there's so many different mics that you can use, and it really just comes down to research. So I myself, I'm speaking to you right now on the ATR 2100. I'm not affiliated with them at all. I just really love their mic. It's for those of you that are watching, it's a small mic. It's easily transportable. I can take it with me when I'm on the road. I've recorded in my car before while I was camping because I had to drive somewhere to get a signal. And they're under about $100, and you can just find them on Amazon. So really research different mics and reach out there. There's tons of communities on Facebook that are free to join, and will have everybody will give their opinion on which mic they think is the best one. So really kind of doing that research and finding where it is that you want to set yourself up to do it. And the other biggest thing I would say is really deciding how many times you want an episode to go out. Because just like in social media, if you say you're going to do it weekly, and then you miss weeks or you're not putting it out on time, your subscribers will fall off very, very fast. And I learned that a little bit the hard way. So when I first started, I thought, I'm just going to say it's like every 2 weeks, because I think I can manage that and to get something out. And at the beginning, it was a little bit difficult because there was a lot of solo episodes that I was doing because I hadn't quite built up guests that I wanted to have on the show. And so that was manageable for me. Now I do it once a week. But the consistency is key. So you really have to sit down and think about how much time it is that you're willing to give to this. And that gets us to that part. So what a lot of people think is, well, I'm just going to sit down, I'm just going to blab into my phone or into a microphone, and then I'll just put it out. How hard can that be?
Yeah, so no content planning at all.
Right. And sometimes you could do that, but the farther you get into it and the more listeners that you start getting, you realize there's a lot more to this, and you almost have to become a jack of all trades. So for an example, when I am getting ready to do an episode, there is about an hour and a half of research that I do before I even have my guest on. So this isn't even including finding the guest. I've already found somebody that I want to interview. I know what I want them to talk about. Now I'm researching them to find questions that I want to ask or things that I want to bring up to them. And then the actual recording can take anywhere, depending on how long your episodes are, can take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and a half. I leave all of my episodes for an hour and a half time because I chat with them a little bit before and I chat with them a little bit after. And so then when it gets to editing, when I initially started, I was like, I'll just stick it out raw. But you make some mistakes and you need to do editing. And sometimes that's not cutting your episode down, but just adding your intro music and your outro music, doing your, the bios of the person and the introductions to them. That all takes a little bit of time. So now I have it down to, every episode is about 60 to 120 minutes of editing, depending on how much stuff I'm putting in there. Now, I go a little bit more than what most people because I have my podcast, but I also release it on a YouTube channel. So I have double the amount of editing. I have to edit for the audio version and I have to edit for the video version that I put out. So there's that time as well. And then the release can take me about 30 to 60 minutes to do. So that entails actually uploading it to Libsyn so that it goes out, writing the description that I want to have for it, writing a blog post, getting my social media ready, and getting them all scheduled out, sending emails to the guests to say, hey, your episode is going live. Here's the link. We hope that you share it. So all in total, an episode can take me anywhere from 3 to 5 hours to get out. So if you're thinking every week, and that's minimum amount of time. So because I've been doing this for a couple of years now, so it's a little bit easier for me to do it. I don't edit.
You gain some efficiencies there.
You do. And at the beginning, I over edited a lot. Like if there was too long pauses, I would cut that out. If there was I would cut that out. And then eventually you just kind of go, I don't have time for that. Just going to have it a natural conversation. But depending on, on the more you get comfortable with it, the more picky you also get with how you want it to sound. And you don't necessarily want it to just be that basic raw version of it because you're getting up there, you're getting noticed, and you want it to sound a little bit more professional. So there's about a 5-hour time limit that you need to know that you can have dedicated to each single episode. So I really tell people, take that into consideration when you're thinking of doing it, because it's just going to grow more and more time. And depending on the guests that you have. Now, my solo episodes take even longer because I do more research and more writing on them. So they take me a little bit more time because I'm not as free flowing. I have to come up with all of the information. When you're interviewing somebody, it's really easy because you're just asking the questions and they have to come up with all of the answers.
It's a beautiful thing. I'm on the other side today.
It is, right? And I enjoy it too. But when you're the one who's doing it, you have to entertain the audience that entire time. You have nobody else to rely on. And I do find that people are a little bit more picky on their solo episodes because you trail off. It's not that easy to stay engaged because you're essentially talking to yourself is really what's happening. So it can take a little bit more time than what it does on the ones that I'm doing an interview with. So when I first started, I really had the thought that this was just going to be something that was really, really easy. And it's not. It takes a lot of time. And I think a lot of people are really they really kind of have this cloud over it where they think it's just going to be something that's easier than putting out a post on Facebook. But there really is a lot of time involved. And you also have people that get vested in you because you're creating your brand. And everything that you say it's out there forever because you're putting it out on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to make sure that what it is that you're saying on your podcast is what, especially if you're doing it for business, is in line with your business and is in line with what you say, because you don't want that confliction that's going out there. So that's something that you have to think about as well. And people who listens to podcasts, they are the most loyal listeners. I love my listeners, absolutely, but they will be the ones that have no issue saying, hey, your episode, usually I can listen to at 7 a.m. where I am, and it hasn't been released yet. What's going on? If it's late, I get emails of people going,
they're loyal when?
Which is awesome. That's
when they're asking you for content.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what you're wanting. But it's a whole different genre of people that you're now sort of responsible to. And they want to know what's going on and what's coming out. So it's almost, when you start a podcast, is to think of it as another little business that you're doing. And it has to be structured that way because you're going to be having people who are counting on you and the content that you have. So, and you want to keep that going because obviously the whole idea of having a podcast is to get your voice out there, is to get people to listen to what you have to say and to be able to share your knowledge with the world. And that's the other thing that is so amazing about doing a podcast is I honestly thought that, I would go out to Canada, mostly Alberta. I knew some of my family in Ontario, of course, would tune in and listen.
Thank goodness we have cousins in Ontario.
And, but after doing it for only a couple of months, I was getting emails from people in Japan and Australia. Australia is now my second largest audience, which is weird to me because it's just, I never thought. So, I'm Canada, then Australia is my next, then the States, Japan, people in Germany, like just all over the world. And I realized, oh, I got to up my game a little bit and not be so specific. So now it was, now it's even more work because I have to realize that my audience just isn't this little bubble that I thought it was. But that's the beauty of podcasting, is that it reaches literally all around the world and you just never know who is finding you.
Amazing. So for how many years have you been doing Fox Talks business?
I started it in December of 2018.
Wow. And now you have it by 2020, an international audience.
Yeah.
Amazing. So when it comes to making money, of course, we're in business, we're not volunteers. Making money, is podcasting just one of your investments in your marketing that you hope you will get a return? And so it's more, you're looking for a broader reach, just like, putting money into Facebook advertising. Now you're using your voice and putting yourself out there on a podcast. Or is there an opportunity to monetize the podcast?
Oh, for sure. There is. And it is not easy because there's a lot of people that are out there that are trying to do the same thing that you're doing. So there's three main ways that I see people doing it. When I initially started the podcast, it really was just to get my name out there. It was just to be able to send mostly people who wanted me to speak, that they could listen to what I sounded like. And so that's initially what I started using it for. It was just that, to get brand recognition, to have people know maybe a little bit more about me than what they would on Facebook Lives or Instagram Lives or even on my YouTube channel. And from that, I was starting to gain clients. People were calling me and saying, I want to work with you. And so that was bringing me money in that way, which I wasn't expecting. And then the other way is sponsorships. So, which is a very common thing, but there's that weird thing that happens with sponsorships that people don't, they think, oh, it'll be great. I'm going to start this podcast. I'm going to get all of these sponsors and it's fantastic. But sponsors want something for them being on your show. And that's something that people don't really take into consideration. So I am very, very particular about who I promote on my show. I do not want to promote anything that I myself have not used, because to me, I think that's really important. Because I have such a big audience now, I want to make sure that everything that I am saying, oh, I love this project, that, this new pen is my favorite pen. I want to make sure I actually like the pen, because I don't want people coming to me and going, I use that pen and it's absolutely horrible. Right? And you hear that a lot, that people will promote it. You also need to decide whether or not you want your podcast to sound commercially. So think about, in this day and age, when's the last time you watched a commercial? That's essentially what sponsorship is, a lot of it. They want you to promote their product and service, which means you have little mini commercials going out through your thing. And I know myself, when I listen to some bigger names, which I won't mention them because I don't want to get myself into trouble, but when I listen to some bigger names, I get a little frustrated because it seems like every 15 minutes there's a commercial. There's a break because they're promoting Honeybooks, which is a famous one on podcasts right now. Honeybooks is a big one. HelloFresh gets advertised quite a bit. But there's that break. So you really need to sit down and decide what it is that you're willing to sponsor and how many. Because you will lose people if all of a sudden, you have a 60-minute podcast with 20 minutes of talk and, all of the rest is just advertising. So really make that very, very clear before you even get started, and really be clear with the sponsors of what they expect from you. Because a lot of podcasters don't do that and they think, I'll just go with it. But they have very hefty requirements. They need so many ads going out. They need so many posts on your social media. They want so many hits. You have to be bringing money in for them or they'll drop you. No different than if you got sponsors for Instagram or if you get sponsors for Facebook. They want ROI. They want return on investment. So there's a lot more work that gets involved with that. The one that I love doing the most is collaboration. So I will promote other podcasts that I've listened to on my show, or I will promote other events. Or if I'm having guests, I'll specifically ask them, is there something that you use? Is there a group that you belong to that you want to promote? I actually had Kim Free on my show, which is going to be airing soon. And she promoted WOW.
Thank you,
she does
Kim.
the elections. So for me, that was the way that I wanted to do it. I wanted to be able to put the promotion out there that it wasn't actually bringing me in money, because I didn't want to have the restrictions. Because again, the reason why I started the podcast was to have no restrictions. So for me, I use the collaboration where I can promote other businesses and then they're sharing that. So I'm getting that greater reach. And some, I will be honest, that some I've promoted and they send me stuff. Now there's companies who are like, we've heard your podcast, you're getting out there, and they send me gifts and say, would you be interested in putting this on the show? And that's fun. I'll be honest with you. There
is nothing wrong with gifts, in my opinion.
It's really fun to get them, but I'm
Mhm.
careful too, right? There are some things that I've gotten and I say, I don't really like this product, so I'm not going to promote it. Like, it's your choice. I can say I got this and I didn't like it, or I can just, return the gift to you. But it is, there is a lot that goes, to be involved in that. For when you're starting to get money for it. And you need to have the listenership up there. So for people just starting out, that isn't even something that should be on your radar, because they want to know, especially for sponsorships, they want to know that you actually have reach. So they're looking for over 10,000 downloads. They want to see that you have, a couple hundred downloads minimum per episode before they're going to invest in you, because they want your audience. So that's really your initial thing that you should concentrate on, is growing that audience, growing that reach, and growing those people who are listening to your episode every time it comes out. Those super fans that we all want to have.
And that segues beautifully into the next question of, when you're getting started and you feel like you're talking to an empty room, and there's empty air, or in radio they probably call it dead air out there, how do you grow to build an audience? How do you get people to listen to you if you're just like, new on the block?
A lot of it, truthfully, is shameless promotion. It is that, you are contacting all of your friends and family and asking them to download episodes for you. You're putting it out on all of your social media, whether it be your personal or your business pages, and really just doing that, trying to get the word out for people to just download and listen to it. And the more people that do, the higher your ratings go, the easier it is for people to find you, especially if you're using, Apple Podcasts, which is one of the biggest ones that's out there. That's where most people find it. So it's really just that shameless promotion of yourself, is just pushing it every chance you get and saying, have you had a chance to reach out? And joining communities on Facebook was a big one for me. And really getting out there and saying, hey, I've got, of being engaged with people, of going out onto other people's pages that are, let's say you're doing something that's financial. Let's say your podcast is a financial thing. Make sure you're engaging yourself into pages where people are saying, I'm having issues with this financial need, or how do I do this? And that you're asking those questions, because then people are going to search for you. And then you have to make sure that your podcast is everywhere on everything that you have. It's a quick and easy click for people to be able to find it. And it's just really that shameless promotion. And eventually it gets out there. And then all of a sudden you have people in Japan who are like, listen to your podcast, just love it. And you're like, how did you hear about
How
me?
did this happen?
I don't know anybody in Japan. Like, but it really just is that initial starting. And then eventually it just builds and builds. It's, you know, it's no different than your social media, right? You just get one person and they tell a friend and they tell a friend, and then it goes bigger and bigger. But you have to be okay with constantly almost being a little bit of a walking commercial at first and saying, hey, have you listened to my podcast lately? I have an episode I think you'd really like.
I love that. And you know what? When I'm driving from wow to wow gathering across Alberta, my favorite thing to do is listen to podcasts as I'm driving. So I'm driving to Airdrie and I'm listening to Tony Robbins interview Sarah Blakely. And excuse me, I'm going to cough here. Thank you, video editing. So Sarah Blakely was telling her, if you don't know who Sarah Blakely is, viewers, and I know you know her Tanya, is she's the owner of Spanx. And she said when she first started out, when she first sent her first shipment to Neiman Marcus, which is where she got her big start, is every friend, every cousin, every family member, she called and said, I need you to go into Neiman Marcus and I need you to buy this product. And when you buy the product, I'm going to reimburse you. She bought a ton of her own product just to show Neiman Marcus that there was a demand and she could sell for it. Now, if that's not shameless self-promotion, I don't know what is, but it worked for her. And it's working for you, Tanya, now too. So this is amazing.
Yeah. And it really was just, you know, I mean, nobody wants to feel like they're salesy. The nice thing about podcasts is you're not selling anything. It's free for people to go on and listen to. And I really now am even more shameless. Like my husband is not a podcast listener, which there are those people out there who it's just not their thing. They're more visual people, you know, and they just can't sit and listen to it. He's one of them. I grab his phone all the time and download all my episodes. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, it has been forever since you've downloaded my episodes. Like, come on, every week on Tuesday, let's go, right?
I'm building our business, honey.
Yeah.
Building our business.
Come on, you're supposed to be my number one fan. Like, let's go. And sometimes it takes that, right? But, and it's really, you know, just getting out there and asking the questions. And the more I ask and the more I listen, the more easy episodes come to me, because I'm listening to what people's pain points are and then trying to find solutions for them. And that's my episode. And when I first started out, finding guests was like, I wrote a huge list because I'm thinking, I wanted it at least 3 episodes before I got out there. I wanted to have something, I call it the bank. So most podcasters will talk about this, you know, for behind the scenes stuff is we all kind of have this bank. So we have episodes that are just sitting there and they're, you know, I call them time friendly episodes. So I can put them out whenever. They don't say anything about events that are happening or anything like that, because you just never know when something's going to happen and an episode doesn't air. And I know I can go to my bank, grab an episode and throw it out because it's all ready to go. It's just sitting there, you know, kind of waiting. But trying to get guests was like, I wrote this huge list of everybody that I could think of that I would want to have on my show. So people I knew, people I didn't know, my dream people, you know, and write that list out. And that was, you know, here's people that I know I can get it right away. So I would look at people who were in the same industry as me. So friends that were in business together, because of course my podcast is based on business. So all of my friends that were in business together that I can interview. Of course, I had Michelle on the show. And then I started asking those guests if they had anybody that they would like to refer. So somebody that had a story to tell. And then there's so many sites like, the Interview Valet, there's podcastguests.com, and there's all these avenues where you can go to these websites and find guests. So they actually have, it's like a directory of people that you want to have. And you can actually be put on, now they're really long waiting lists, but you can be put on a waiting list to have your show featured in their newsletter. And then people can sign up to be a guest. That was an amazing tool that I don't even know how I found it. I think they sent me an email once and I signed up for it. And it took probably about 6 months before I got featured in the newsletter. But once I did, now I still get people that will send me stuff. And, I had people like Peter Montoya who showed up on my show, where his booking agent now is like, I have other people besides Peter. Here, let me send you people. And now I don't look for people anymore, which is a wonderful thing. But again, I've been doing it since 2018. I'm just getting there now where I'm like, there's too many people. Like, I don't have enough time to interview people. So all of that takes a little bit more time as well, researching where it is that you can find guests, because there's lots of people who are willing to be podcast guests out there. And I've had some where I thought they would be a fantastic guest, and I had them and I recorded with them. And then I went, that was crap. Like, that was horrible.
Oh no, that's disappointing.
It was like herding chickens on a frozen pond. Like, we were all over the place. But I had to get over the fact that not every interview is going to be a good interview. Now, in total amount of time, I think I've had 2 interviews that I haven't aired because they weren't good or something happened. One of them I was like, it was the chicken one that I was like, in editing, I couldn't even make sense of half of the stuff. Like, I was like, I don't know what happened. They seemed really cool, calm, and collect, and then you record and it goes out. So sometimes you do these recordings and you have to throw it out. And that was when I was really grateful I had a bank of interviews that I could just pull from because I needed to. And sometimes you have interviews that just, now they're fantastic. Like, they're great guests. And usually it's people who really want to be on the show. They have something that they want to say. They have a platform they want to speak of, books that they want to promote, or courses that they have coming up. And so it's really, does get easier to find people. And the more you're out there and the more people hear about you, the more people start contacting you and saying, I want to be on your show because I see your reach. I see the value in me coming on your show, and it does get a little bit easier. But that first part is you're pulling everybody and being like, come on, you have to come on my show. Like,
you have to come on my show. That's awesome.
I need a guest, right? And really sitting down too and deciding, do you want to have guests? Do you want to have people that you interview, or are you just doing all of the episodes by yourself? Or do you want to have a co-host, somebody that you can talk with? Because a lot of podcasts are doing that as well, so that they sort of have that banter back and forth, that they can talk to someone else where they don't feel that they're all alone. When I initially recorded, I had a picture of all of my girlfriends up right in front of my computer, and that's who I talked to, because I wanted it to sound like I was just having a conversation. So I talked to my picture
That's awesome.
of my fans,
So Tanya, let's get technical. Now that we have, hopefully, those of you who are wanting to podcast, you've developed a content plan, built a calendar, found some guests or a co-host, or figured out what you're going to share with the world, and you've bought your equipment. Now what? What is the editing software, the technical stuff we need to learn in order to get it out to the world?
So the nice thing is that just like with hosting platforms, there are a ton of editing software that's out there, and there's some free ones. So if you're on Apple, GarageBand is one of the most popular ones for a podcast, and it's 100% free. And if you're on PC, then Audacity is the one that I use because I'm on PC. And again, 100% free, doesn't cost you anything. It's a little bit of a learning curve for them, but it really kind of is like cut and paste. And the more you learn about the program, the more features that you can kind of, put into it and learn about. When I first started, that was literally all I knew how to do. I knew how to cut a piece at the beginning and cut the piece at the end and throw some music in. And that was it. That was all I knew how to do. And there's so many tutorials out there on them that you can take, and takes you step by step how to add in audio, how to silence just a certain section, how to make it friendly with Zoom, as an example. So today we're recording on Zoom. I do most of my interviews on Zoom. And just finding those little details, like in Zoom, clicking so that when it records and it plays, sorry.
That's okay.
Edit that part out.
Yeah.
when you record, that it will save each audio file into a separate file. So there'll be one file for Michelle, there'll be one file for me. So if I'm doing something while Michelle is talking and I hit my mic or I cough, that I can just silence that section of it. That was something I didn't know about at first. So it was just one long thing, and you just hoped that nothing happened in the background, like a train didn't go by or a kid didn't open a door, which happens all the time. So it was just those little techniques of being able to learn it. So like I said, those are absolutely free. I still use Audacity to this day because I really like it. It's easy, it's friendly, it doesn't cost me anything. And there are there's tons of different editing software that you can buy that, gets really up there. You can do, you can have it looking like you're a radio station by the time that you're done. And that is just not my expertise. There's also editing out. So there are lots of people who will edit your episode for you. So if that's something that you don't like to do, or you find it really frustrating, or you just want to pay, there's people who are like, I love editing. Just send it to me and we'll send you a nice crisp episode that you can put out. Now that, again, that does have a cost to it. So you have to decide whether or not that's something that you want to do. I like editing because then I get to listen to the episode again. And there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, I forgot that they said that. And I'm taking notes for my social media posts. I'm taking notes for what I want to say for my blog post. I'm taking notes of where I want to put stuff in for my video. So there's a lot of times that I complain about the editing, but I keep doing it myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a lot of other friends that are podcasters that hate doing editing. They don't like it at all. So they send it out for somebody else to do. So you really just have to look around for what it is that you want to do. But there's lots of free stuff that's out there. So that would be my recommendation when you're first starting out. So GarageBand if you're on Apple, and then Audacity if you're on PC. And it's just a quick download, and they're fun to use. So I would suggest those two.
Fantastic. So Tanya, in the world of every podcast that has gone before us, and it seems to be, like you said, a podcast for every subject matter, bigger than the largest library in the whole wide world, and a lot of competitive landscape out there. Lots of people talking about business, or lots of people talking about mindset or cooking or how to take care of your doodle, all those kind of things. How do you differentiate yourself from the rest and stand out in the crowd?
Yeah, I think it's authenticity is really, and it's become such a buzzword, but I truly believe everybody who's out there has a unique story, and that's what you have to be willing to share. And for me, what I hear most from my audience is they want to know the times I've tripped. They want to know the times I failed and how did I come out of that. So really being okay with sort of burying it all and being truthful with what it is that you have to say. That's what people are looking for. That's what I think society is yearning for. They don't want the glamour and the glitz. They want to see behind the scenes. They want to see the mess. They want to see, the kitchen full of dishes. They want to see that you're human and that they can relate to you. So it's really being that. It's being relatable. It's being willing to maybe tear the Band-Aid off a little bit and show that you bleed as well. But also the thing that sets you apart is how are you explaining how you got out of that? And I think that's the key thing is you've had a stumble, but how did you get out of it? Because other people are still stuck in the hole. So show them how it was that you got out of that hole. And no matter what you're doing in life, there's going to be thousands of other people that are doing the same thing that you are. So just forge ahead and do it, because there's, we think that there's thousands of other people that are doing the same thing we're doing, but there's billions of people in this world that are listening. So there's one person for everybody. And whether that's you downloading it yourself on your husband's phone, which we all start out that way.
Absolutely.
But I think, you just have to know that your message, that you want to get it out there. And there is somebody who wants to hear it. I truly believe that everybody has somebody who needs to hear their story, somebody who needs to learn a lesson from them. So just keep telling that story and find ways that help inspire you. So for me, I used to do, and I still do it in a, I wonder if I have my journal here. I have a little journal that I keep when I first started. And, so here is my little, I watched Up a lot. So here is my little photo of all of my balloons. And every time I got to 50 listeners, I would color a balloon in. And so this was when I first started. That was my goal, was to get to my first 2,000 listeners. To me, having 2,000 people regularly listen to an episode was like, it was never going to happen. Like I was just like,
that was like the big, hairy, audacious goal.
it seemed something that was so obscure, but as I started coloring in, I got really excited about it. And I still do it to this day. That's what excites me. And so I constantly look and see where my stats are at, because I want to color in another balloon, or I've switched. I did a microphone, I do a bunch of different things, but I really wanted to, for me, that was just encouraging to me, so it could be whatever works for you, or whatever helps to motivate you, but keep track of those little things and celebrate them. Celebrate your first 50 people. That's a huge accomplishment. And we tend to think we want to be like, 100,000 listeners. And sure, that's great, but I'm not even there yet. Like my next target goal is 30,000. Like that's where I'm aiming. So you'll get there, and it's great to go, eventually I want hundreds of thousands of people, but really don't forget to celebrate those small ones. Like I went big when I got my first 50 people that listened to an episode. I was going to go and get a pedicure. That was how I was going to celebrate it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my girlfriends and I, we set our goals, and then we get really excited about being able to, and sometimes it's just eating a chocolate bar. Sometimes it's going and spoiling ourselves at the spa.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's going away to the mountains and, and having a weekend off, but just really celebrate those milestones, because I think that's really important, because you don't know, with podcasting, you put it out there and then you wait. And that it's a bit of a waiting game, because you're like, I hope people are listening. I hope people, that it's not just my family, that's clicking on it, that it's not just my husband that probably, I don't know how many episodes he'd be able to tell you he's fully listened to. God bless him. He does support, well, I shouldn't say that. I make him support me.
That's right. Sometimes they just need a little nudge.
Right?
A little nudge.
It's just really finding those people who like listening to podcasts, because there are, I have some people who, love my newsletter, and I send that out to them, but they don't listen to my podcast because it's just not their thing. So you have to be okay with that too. And it's just finding those people that enjoy it and saying, oh, have you listened to mine? And those collaborations of get yourself out there and be a guest on other people's show. And because they're looking for guests just like you are, they want content. So get out there and look them up. A lot of people will have, like for me, on my website, I have a link where you can become a guest, and people can just click there and fill out a questionnaire. And then my team looks at it and says, we think this would be a good person for what you're looking for, and away you go. But get out there and be a guest on other people's show. And don't forget to say, you can listen to my Fox Talks Business anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's okay to do that. So I think it's a little bit of, that shameless self-promotion that I said, and getting out there and being a guest on other people's podcasts, because they have listeners that like listening to podcasts. So, just doing that. And then that just kind of sets you up to spread, to get bigger, and just celebrate those milestones for whatever number, whether it's every 25, every 50, every 100, it'll grow, it'll get there, but it does take time. Like it's, I think it was up until about 2,000 listeners was like a roller coaster going up a hill. Like it was like chug, chug, chug. Like it just felt so slow. And for me, I find that 2,000 mark was when I kind of felt like the roller coaster went downhill. It was like all of a sudden I was starting to get all of these listens on episodes. And I was like, oh, and then my previous episodes were getting more listens. And then it just kind of blew up from there. So know that there's going to be that slow chug of while you're getting noticed and while people are finding you, because it is like finding a needle in a haystack for a little bit. So really that initial push when you put your podcast out of saying, okay, I'm releasing my podcast, please go and download episodes. The more downloads you get when you first come out, the higher you're going to rank in like Apple Podcasts. So they'll put you as news and noteworthy because you've gotten so many on your initial one. And that really helps you too. So it's little tricks like that of, make sure that you have more than one episode. Think of Netflix. Have you ever just gone on to Netflix and went, I'm going to watch one show a week? Just like on TV.
Does that ever happen?
Right?
Well, boom, the weekend is now gone. And
you all of a sudden go and it just moves you to the next episode. And you're like, oh, well, I mean, it's already started. So podcasts are the same. As soon as someone listens to one, it bumps them onto your next episode. So start with 3 or 4 episodes to get them really hooked and interested in. And then from there, they can just go. And then now I find new listeners will go back and I'll have really old episodes that all of a sudden will start to get more traction because people are listening to it. So it really is just keep plugging away and just keep knowing that someone is listening to your message. And so Libsyn, as an example, has, if you pay, I think it's $20 or more, you can get statistics. So it'll actually show you a map of the world. And it will show you exactly how many people are listening in that country. And then you can click in and you can see how many are listening per province or per state, exactly where people are coming from. So the higher packages you pay for, the more analytics that you can get from them. And those are really important. I think the beginning one for Libsyn, don't quote me on this, but I think it's only about $15 a month. So you get some basic stats. And then you can move up. There's bigger ones, but I think I'm on like a $20 plan. I should know this, shouldn't I? Like I should know exactly what it is.
Okay. Sometimes when we have subscription services like that, like the WOW membership, for example,
it just comes out.
It just is what it is. It's just there. So Tanya, as you're looking at this really incredible success in such a short period of time, how has podcasting impacted your business because you're using it as a marketing tool?
I think it's been phenomenal for me, especially for my speaking engagements. I find a lot more have come because they've heard about my name and then they've looked for my podcast and listened to it and then said, yeah, we like the way she sounds. So for me, that advertising piece of it I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. And the people that I've been able to meet has been incredible. People that I've been able to interview and then now are working with. So a lot of my guests I've stayed in touch with. So one of the things I started doing is every time I had a guest, and I wish I would have started this at the beginning. So this might be a good tip for people. Mm-hmm. I started this a little bit into it, about 6 months into it, but I started handwriting a card to everybody to say, thank you so much for being a guest and something that I enjoyed about them or something that just something personal. And I would put my business card in it. And after every interview, I now sit down and I write that card and I put it in the mail that day. And the response to it has been phenomenal because nobody gets cards. Like people don't get personal mail anymore, right? It's all
bills and flyers, right?
So it's a nice thing to do. It makes me feel good. I also support somebody local. So I found a local artist who creates all of my cards for me. She hand paints them all. So she created these cute little cards that have a little fox on it. Mm-hmm. And we started working together. So she creates the cards and advertises them for me. And she has a little ad on the back of the card if people are interested in buying from her. So again, I'm all about the collaboration, but it was just a small piece that really helped me. And then what I found that by sending that little personal touches, those guests were contacting me and saying, hey, I'd really love to have you on my show. Or, hey, my friend has a show and I think you'd be good at it. Or, hey, I want to work with you. And all of a sudden, this little thing that was just me, talking into a microphone to nobody has turned into an amazing networking opportunity. And that has been the biggest return on investment for me is the networking capability that I have from in my own home. And I've worked with people as far as Singapore. I've worked with a lady who said, hey, let's collaborate on a project together, which when else would I have been able to meet a beauty queen out of Singapore? But I did. And, and it all started with simply having her on the show and just having a connection with her. So I think, depending on really what you want to get out of it, I think the networking is the biggest piece. And if you can use that to your advantage, you can grow your business by leaps and bounds.
Amazing. Tanya, thank you so much for sharing the power of podcasting today. I know I've learned so much, especially when it comes to the tech side, the time investment, the planning that you need to do, and the patience that you need to have.
Yeah. And I think that was the biggest thing. So for those that are listening, if you don't mind, Michelle, I'll just give like a short thing. So when you're doing a podcast, the first thing that you have to do is figure out what you're going to talk about. That's the biggest thing. What is the genre that you want? Figure out a name for your podcast. It needs to be something that's short. It has to fit in a very small box in Apple Podcasts. So figure out your name and your logo. Figure out some some episode topics that you want to do, even some solo ones. Look for equipment that you want to buy, even if that's just your phone. Do some practice recordings just on your voice memos of your phone. And then research hosting sites. So like I said, the Libsyn, Blueberry, SoundCloud, those ones. Find one that's going to work for you, that's going to work in your price range. And then also figure out what you want to do with your promotion for your launch. Think of it as something huge, like you're starting a business and you want this to be a big launch. So whether that's looking for a partner that's going to help you with it, but make it something that's like, you're not going to believe this is coming out. And then just keep talking. There's always going to be somebody who wants to listen.
That's awesome. So speaking of listening, where do we find Fox Talks Business?
So you can go to our website at foxtalksbusiness.ca. You can also find us everywhere that you like listening to podcasts. So if you just go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or iHeartRadio, you can find us all there, but they're all quick links on our website. So if you go to foxtalksbusiness.ca and just click podcast at the top, you can scroll down and find anywhere that you like listening to podcasts and have a quick link and to be able to access us. And then for social media as well, just look for Fox Talks Business and you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and as well on YouTube. If you're more of a watcher than a listener, we're getting our YouTube channel up and going. So
fantastic. Tanya, I know that these ladies, well, they'll be downloading, so watch for another spike from the WOW Tribe to support you, and thank you for your wisdom and your knowledge. And ladies, really, Tanya has had amazing guests on her podcast, and you'll also find her secrets of her own business success in the WOW VIP Tribe membership under the section of inspiration of the secrets of business success from women just like Tanya who have walked the walks, ridden the entrepreneurial roller coaster, and have epically succeeded. So if you like this episode, go over and catch Tanya on the other side in the secrets of business success. Tanya, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. And if any of your listeners have any questions, they can email me at foxtalksbusiness@gmail.com. And I'm happy to answer and peel the Band-Aid back a little bit if they're interested in starting their own show. No charge at all.
Oh, I love that. That's such an amazing gift. Thank you so much.